Hello, welcome to Roussel Reads. I'm Deja, and today we are going to do a list of 2026 book releases for the first half of 2026. So, this is always like one of my favorite videos to film before the end of the year, just because I can get excited for some upcoming book releases. But I will say this year it was extremely hard to find books by Black authors that I'm excited for, mainly because I am a fantasy, sci-fi, and romance reader, but for whatever reason, we're not really getting a lot of those books by Black authors these days. At least not a lot of those books that are just like pure fantasy or pure sci-fi. I feel like most of the ones that are coming out have been romantasy, and we all know how I am with the romantasy books these days. So there aren't a lot of books that I was really excited for, but I do have a list of, I think, 15 to talk about today. The first four are the ones that I'm like extremely excited for, and then the rest of them are just some that I have on my radar that like I'm hoping they could be good, but I'm also just very aware that they are authors I've never read before, so I'm not sure about even like their writing, and authors that like they're not typically in the genre that I read. So I'm still going to talk about them because I am going to be keeping an eye out on them, but like I said, the first four are the ones that I am extremely excited for. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. So one of my top releases for next year is Year of the Mer by LD Lewis. I actually talked about this in my 2025 book releases because I thought that it was going to be coming out in 2025, but it ended up being pushed back to 2026. But I'm really loving this cover. It is a Little Mermaid retelling that has more of a sapphic relationship, and it's like more of like a darker twist to it, and I am very excited for this. I think LD Lewis is a great writer, and I'm so excited. I just need good fantasy, and I feel like they are going to give it to me, and I'm so excited. The next one that I'm extremely excited for is Witch Queen Rising by Savannah Stevens. This is giving me Southern Gothic vibes, and I absolutely love it. The cover is absolutely gorgeous, and the author has been sharing like aesthetics of it, and I'm just very excited to see like how the author like pulls this off. I feel like this is giving me like the darker elements of being like a witch and like bloodlines and all of that, as opposed to like being like a cozy witch story. It seems like it's going to be more of like a broader paranormal world, which I'm very excited about, and I really want it to be good, and I am highly anticipating it. I can't even like speak because I'm just like I want this to be really good. This is a debut author, so there's a chance I may not like it, but honestly, my hopes are high for this book. The next one that I have is also kind of a Southern Gothic story, and this one was actually self published first before it became traditionally published. And so this one is called On Sunday She Picked Flowers. I actually had this on my radar when it was indie published, but I didn't get a chance to get to it. This one, like I said, is giving me also Southern Gothic vibes, and I have heard only really good things about this. It has like ghosts and hauntings and stuff in it, and it seems like it's going to be a Southern Gothic dealing with like a lot of like family trauma, and it's going to be more like character driven, which are usually like my kind of stories when it comes to like books. Like I love character driven, emotional kind of books, and the horror elements I feel like will add to that layering of this character. So I'm excited to try this. Shifting gears a little bit, the next one we have is a historical fiction by Sadeqa Johnson. I believe that's how you pronounce the author's name. And this is The Keeper of Lost Children. I don't really know much about the story besides the fact that it takes place around World War II Germany, and of course going to follow probably like black characters. But I have read historical fiction by Sadeqa Johnson before, and I really love this author's writing and the way that she pays attention to characters. I really just love the way that she tells a historical fiction story. So I'm excited to see what she's going to bring to this story. I feel like when we think of like World War II Germany, like we don't necessarily see like the intersectionality with like those kinds of stories. They're usually just not that diverse at all. So I'm curious what this author will bring to a story like this. I do think that it'll probably be like an emotional thing because we're dealing with like children and, post war things will be hard to read and stuff. So, like, yeah, I have to mentally prepare myself to read this, but I just know that it's going to be beautifully written and probably just like a heart wrenching story that I will enjoy because yeah, I don't know how you could like enjoy a story like this, but like I said, the writing usually like sucks me in and I just enjoy this author's writing. On a more lighthearted note, we have the next book, which is Love from the Cosmos. This is a contemporary fantasy romance, I want to say. It has like some like fantasy elements to it because I think the male main character is a god. Like his family runs this like matchmaking dating app service thing. And so when this dating app doesn't work for the female main character, he is partnered with her to make sure that she finds love. And of course, they're going to fall in love together. So I feel like this just sounds cute, interesting. It doesn't seem like that long. It sounds like it could be funny and it also looks just cute. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see what I think about this one. It is one that I have put on my radar because it just sounds interesting. The next one that we have is Our Sister's Keeper by Jasmine Holmes. This is another Southern Gothic story that I'm intrigued about. It seems to follow these two sisters that are in this all black town where it's only the women that can see these like ghosts haunting things. I'm intrigued to see like how this story is going to develop. It seems like it's going to be more of like a psychological horror, and I'm intrigued to see the conversations that happened around the women in this town pulling the traumatic memories from men. So yeah, I'm intrigued with this story and I hope that it delivers a solid story. And the next one is a fantasy romance, which I know that I said I'm not really into fantasy romances these days, but this one is by a author friend of mine and I'm intrigued to see how I like this one. So this one is called Healer's Touch by Samantha Devereaux. This is an interracial fantasy romance following a character named Anaya who has a Reaper's Eye, I guess. So, and that's like punishable by death. And she is captured by this guard and has to go to like some kingdom or whatever to use her powers for the king or whatever. Of course, as they are traveling through and trying to get to this kingdom, they fall in love. So I'm intrigued with this mainly because this is my author friend. And we've had like conversations before about like how they're trying to like balance the fantasy and the romantic elements. So I will be trying this out, but I also know that I'm not usually a huge fan of like traveling. So we will see how it goes. The next one that I have is Kin by Tayari Jones. This is one by an author that I have read before. I think I've only read one book by them. Yeah, one book by them, and I think that was An American Marriage, and I enjoyed that one. So I'm curious to see like how this one goes. I really like how this author writes complicated relationships between people. So I feel like this one is going to give me that just between like mothers and daughters and probably friendships and things. This one also takes place in the South. I believe it takes place in Louisiana. So yeah, I'm just curious what the author will do with the character relationships in this one and what conversations will come up out of this. The next one that I have is one that I'm not even sure is going to come out in 2026, at least not on the date that I have on the screen because they pushed it back a few times and they keep changing the cover. So yeah, I'm not sure what this one is going to be, but this one is To Defy Angels by Sonia and Nkera, I believe that's how you pronounce this author's name. But this is an indie book from an author that I've been following on Threads and Instagram. This author is from Uganda, which piqued my interest because they're writing fantasy and I'm trying to like diversify like where I get my black fantasy from. This one seems to take place at like in an academy, and the main character of this one seems to have like some kind of curse upon her, or she's like different somehow, but she ends up in this academy where like people like her are always like going missing or dead. And while she's at this academy, it becomes this chase to see who is killing all of the girls in this academy before they end up killing her. It seems like it's going to be kind of like a faster paced mystery kind of story. So I'm intrigued with this one. Like I said, I feel like I'm mainly interested in this because of the author's background, and I'm curious to see like what cultural elements that they bring to it. The next one that I have is Indigent by Briana N. This is an author that I follow on Threads. This one is a horror, which you can probably tell from the cover because it's like horrific. But I'm intrigued with this one because it seems like it's going to be dealing with like gentrification, and it seems like there's some kind of like disease that's happening in this one as well that probably pairs with the gentrification aspect of it. And it's following this guy named Xavier. And I guess Xavier is a survivor of this kind of sickness that was brought upon, I think the summary said like Ford or something, like some big company that was ruining a black neighborhood, probably. So yeah, I'm intrigued about the social commentary on this one, about the horror elements of it. Like, I really like when horror can pull upon like something that is like real, but then also like making it more speculative. So I'm curious to see how the story will go. The next one that I have is another indie release, and I think it's Keeper of the Crimson Crescent Dragon. I believe I said that right. Like, it's a long title, so I forget sometimes. This one I was immediately interested in because it follows two sisters, and I love sister relationships in books. Like, it's just one of my things that I just really like. But another thing that called me to this is that it deals with sorcerers, and so there's sorcerers and non-sorcerers, and there seems to be like some like political struggle between the two of them. But there also seems to be like this like darker element supernatural thing that's also coming in, like raising tension. But I'm very interested in this one because of the political intrigue aspect of it that seems to be entwined with the fantasy sorcerer element of it. So yeah, I'm curious what kind of magic we'll get from this, and yeah, I'm intrigued to try this one out. So the next one that I have is one that I am tentatively anticipating because it's a lot of things that like I don't know if I would necessarily like, but it also has a major aspect that I'm very intrigued about. So this one is Heart's Gambit by JD Myall, something like that. And so basically it was like the first line of this like blurb that kind of got it for me, because it was like it's following these two black time traveling families who are dueling each other in this magical duel. But then of course I think the two main characters, they fall in love with each other. And now it wasn't even like the falling in love part, because like that's whatever, but like the two black families and their time travelers, I feel like that could be so interesting. And I don't see a lot of time traveling when it comes to like black people in fantasy sci-fi, and so I'm very intrigued to see how this author does it. But I think this is also YA, and I don't necessarily think that anything else about the story sounds that interesting, to be honest. But it's two black time traveling families. Like, they had me at that. So I am looking forward to trying it out. I do have an arc of it. So yeah, I'm I'm hopeful for this. I'm really hoping that I like it. The next one that I have is Charmed and Dangerous by Shelly Page. And this one is a sapphic little love story that follows these characters that are part of this like magical bureau or something. I think one is like the daughter of the leader in the bureau, and the other one is like somebody that works there. But I guess they agreed a fake date as they're trying to find out the mystery of what happened with this like love charm or something. It seems like it could be just like a fun YA read, and yeah, I'm intrigued to see what I think about it. And the last one that I have is Hold Me As I Land by Kayla N. Jones. This one is giving me a emotional romance story. I think that the comps that this author used was like how Stella got her groove back only for the week, and I think like a Kennedy Ryan book or something. I don't know. This main character, she gets jilted at the altar by her long-term boyfriend or something, like her best friend or whatever. And so after being left at the altar, she decides to just go on the honeymoon with her friend anyway, and there she meets the love interest. And so I think, yeah, it'll be an emotional story, and yeah, we'll we'll see how it goes. But that wraps up all of the books that I am anticipating for 2026, for at least the first half of the year. I feel like as we get on in the year, like we'll probably get more releases for the year. But for now, there aren't really many that I'm anticipating for next year. There are quite a few more that are releasing next year that weren't necessarily like my thing, but just in case you're interested, I will link a few lists down below with just lists that people have gathered. Some of them have like over like 100 or so books on them or so. So yeah, I will link that down below just in case you're interested in finding more. But these are some of the books that I'm anticipating for 2026. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they go better than my 2025 has been. If there are any books that you're excited for that you think that I may also like, definitely let me know in the comments. And if you don't want to do that, you can also just leave whatever emoji I put on the screen. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. I really thank you all for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.